mic to Gary. There you go.
All right. Let's talk briefly about the CWPP solution. As we all know, things are moving towards the cloud. Therefore, a cloud workload protection platform solution can really come in handy. Before I begin, I want to talk briefly about our theme for the year, which is Reshape Security. And by reshape, we are reshaping security by encouraging enterprises to be able to embrace cyber resilience. And the idea of cyber resilience is being able to withstand threats both in complexity and also in volume. You can withstand complexity because of its ability to be adaptable, flexible, dynamic, therefore more practical. And the fact that it can withstand lots of threats shows that it's resilient. Now, the product we're going to talk about today for the cloud, there are a bunch of security challenges in play, both on the host side and also on the container side. Without going too much into depth, we'll start off by covering the host side, the host security challenges. There are vulnerabilities on the host and on the software, and as we can see, some of the examples are being able to escalate your privilege status when it's over the Linux. You can also exploit the kernel. That's another thing we like to say. Then over to the right, we have non-compliant environment configurations. This one's pretty simple. So if you have I'll just go with the top example. If you have an open port, it is at risk of being attacked, especially if this open port is able to be compromised by potential malicious hackers. And we look at the third one, even more simple, is the risk of a weak password. What this means is if your username is admin, your password should not be admin. Now to the idea of the intrusion detection difficulty. The reverse shell is one of the most commonly used ways that malicious hackers will use as a tactic. To put a reverse shell simply, it is when, for example, phishing is sent over and one of the people on the internal side, they capture the phishing email, they open it, download the malicious code, and as a result of this malicious code, it can open a listening port. Then external hackers are able to leverage this, and that's how they can possess a reverse shell. The final is going over to the east-west traffic risk. So for east-west traffic risk, this because the cloud is so expensive, there's a lot of good opportunities for threats to move laterally across. That's what we call it, east-west movement. And those are a huge set of vulnerabilities. Now let's move on over to the container security challenges. So containers is more of the server side, and we like to focus on containers because it's one of the more new technologies. It is very flexible, can be deployed very quickly, and things of the sort. Starting with the container images themselves, container images themselves can have vulnerabilities that can be exploited. A simple example I like to use here is, if let's say most people are aware of Kleenex as a type of tissue. Well, some people will transform the name to something simple like Kleenex, and now people may not always realize there's a difference between the names, and if they download the wrong version of this container image, it becomes a vulnerability. Over to the infrastructure. The infrastructure itself has a lot of vulnerabilities itself. We talked about the vulnerabilities in the host. There's also compliance issues when it comes to Kubernetes configuration. I'll just leave it at that without getting too much into detail. Over on the bottom, we have runtime. So runtime security, one of the biggest issues that I'll point to over here is the idea of a container escape. So normally when a container is being run, it's going to be kept in a certain area. But one of the vulnerabilities will allow these threats to escape, will allow a user to escape through the container, and then that can move laterally to become an attack as well. And the final thing to mention briefly is the network itself. As it pertains to the container environment, the network itself has vulnerabilities since Kubernetes, at least natively, does not possess microsegmentation or other crucial capabilities. Let's move on over to Cloud Armor, which is Hillstone's CWPP solution. Hillstone's Cloud Armor is pretty straightforward. I'll describe the three things down in the yellow. Over in the host environment, we will usually deploy something we call the SSA, which is the Security Service Agent. Over on the container environment, we will usually deploy the Security Service Module, the SSM. And what these agents in there, they can be managed in the middle within the Cloud Armor's control center, which is the central management component. I want to take a moment to talk a little bit about the important capabilities offered by our CWPP solution, which we also can be considered to be a differentiating factor. The first one is the comprehensive visibility. As you can see from the image, it can display all the hosts, all the containers that exist. There's a host perspective, there's also a container perspective, and it can show all the nodes within the clusters. Visibility is very key. This pertains to one of the parts of our methodology, the see part. Being able to see all your threats is important in order to be able to act upon this. Moving on to the artificial intelligence enhanced analytics, this is also a very important capability, since after we are able to see the threats, we also want to be able to understand what these threats are doing and how they relate to the overall environment. One of the big ways that we leverage AI for our CWPP is using behavioral model learning. Long story short, behavioral model learning is where we model the baseline behavior of what is deemed normal. And when behavior has been deemed to deviate too far from the norm, it's going to be flagged. Finally, to talk about the streamlining of operations, this is what we call the ACT portion as it pertains to our solutions. After you've been able to see comprehensively what is going on and understand how these threats play a role and how they fit in the overall security posture, now you want to be able to act properly. This is where our smart policy assistant comes in. Even if you don't have a full understanding of the cloud, of how your cloud is operating, this assistant will guide you and understand how to secure your space. This is a picture of our overall product portfolio. We offer a lot of products, as you can see from all the different sections. Where CWPP fits in, there is a solution at the bottom, and Cloud Arbor is under the Cloud Protection section. The last thing that I want to mention before we call it a day for this presentation is to show how we have legitimacy both in terms of innovation and also in terms of the fact that our products are able to work. As you can see on the left-hand side, that is the peer insights. And what that is proof of is that our solutions work easily. Our customers are happy with how easy it is to operate our solutions. If we look to the right, this is our visionary qualification. This goes to show that we truly have innovative technology that is being used within our solutions. So thanks a bunch for your time, and until the next presentation.
Thank you, Gary. Don't forget to pick up your raffle ticket for today's Apple AirPods giveaway at 5 o'clock. Gary will also be doing presentations every hour, so we have a lot of solutions.